Hi, everyone. I am Quin Garcia from Autotech Ventures, and we are here for a chat with Peter Kelly, who, among other things, is one of the world's top experts in digital marketplaces for wholesale used vehicles. Some of you might already know our firm, Autotech Ventures, but for those of you who don't know us, we manage around 300 million bucks in VC funds investing in transportation startups. And we not only invest capital to support startups, but we also help them to partner with large transport and automotive corporations to scale their business. And I think that Peter Kelly's journey is super interesting, and I really admire him and the way he's succeeded as both an automotive marketplace entrepreneur on one hand, and now as a senior executive in a large automotive corporation. So you can really relate to both the entrepreneurs and the senior automotive corporate execs who are in our audience today. Peter is also one of the few marketplace entrepreneurs that I've come across who operated his startup through not one, but two massive economic downturns. First, the dot-com bust, and then the Great Recession of 2008. Before he eventually sold his company, Openlane, to Car Global, which is one of the world's largest automotive marketplace corporations, big publicly traded corporation. And in the years since Openlane was acquired, Peter's thrived as a corporate exec, moving up the ranks, and he's now become the president of Car Global. So today we'd like to share with you guys some of the lessons that Peter learned about navigating automotive corporations and that whole world as a startup. And we've got about 20 minutes of conversation between me and Peter, and then we're going to open it up to about 5 minutes of Q&A from all of you out there. So with that, let's get rolling. So Peter, can you please give us a quick summary of Openlane, the used auto wholesale marketplace that you founded some years ago?
Well, thanks, Quinn. I appreciate that introduction, and good afternoon or good morning, everybody in Pacific time. I'm in the Eastern time zone here. So Openlane, yes, we were a dot-com era disruptor, although that word wasn't widely used back then, of the wholesale used vehicle market in US and Canada, North America. So let's talk about wholesale used vehicles. You know, when most of us think of used vehicle marketplaces, we think of retail. You know, there's about 40 million retail used vehicle transactions a year, either consumer to dealer to consumer or consumer to consumer. That whole marketplace is what people think of. Most people don't know there's actually a wholesale marketplace for used vehicles. It's about 15 million vehicles a year traded between businesses. And it's kind of an inventory reallocation of vehicles to get them into the appropriate sort of retail distribution. About 10 million vehicles sold through physical auctions each year, and about 5 million sold directly between businesses through less formal channels. And Openlane, we were looking at technology opportunities back in 1999 and marketplace opportunities. I love marketplace business models myself. And we just found this wholesale used vehicle marketplace and thought, wow, that's a huge opportunity. You know, 10, 15 million transactions per annum, $100 billion of merchandise value being transacted in a wholesale setting. And it seems right for technology-driven change. And that's really what we set out to do. Very naive, you know, 28 years old or whatever back then. Didn't really know the industry at all. I didn't really know technology all that well. But anyway, we were successful in raising some capital in that dot-com era and, you know, grew the business independently for about 12 years. You know, lots of ups and downs, but more ups than downs. Two recessions, as you mentioned, Quinn. We got it to about a scale of about 350,000 cars per annum sold on the platform. That's north of $10 billion worth of vehicle value, I think, if my math is correct. Pretty big number. Maybe it's not quite big, but substantial number of billions of dollars, and about $100 million of revenue. And our clients at that point principally were on the seller side were global automakers selling their used car portfolios. They're off-lease cars, they're repossessed cars, they're company cars. So we had Ford, Honda, Volkswagen, brands like that. And then the buyers were typically dealers, principally franchise dealers. Honda of El Cerrito, you know, kind of dealers, but also some independents. Mm-hmm. That was the business at the point of acquisition.
Awesome. And Peter, can you give us a quick summary of the digital marketplaces that you now run at Car Global?
Yeah, well, Car Global is a much bigger entity than that, Quinn, as you alluded to at the start. We're a leader in the wholesale automotive space, principally North America operations, but we also have operations in Europe, UK and mainland Europe. Last year, we sold 3.8 million vehicles at Car, so $40–50 billion worth of value. And I'll say four principal platforms for that. One was Openlane, the business that I was a co-founder of, that continues and has grown. Second one is ADESA, which is principally a physical auction platform, 70 different wholesale automotive auctions across US and Canada, but also an online ADESA.com venue where dealers can buy online as well as go in person and buy in person. And then two other digital platforms, TradeRev, which is a more of a newer stage startup, less than 10-year-old business, leveraging mobile type technologies. And then an international platform, which is entirely digital as well. So, if I think of those platforms, 3 out of 4 of them are exclusively digital. And then ADESA is a digital physical hybrid. And what all that amounted to last year is, if you looked at all the cars we of them sold to online buyers, 42% still buyers showing up in person. But with the advent of this COVID crisis, we, in the last 2 months and pretty much overnight, moved to an entirely virtual. Through social distancing, we couldn't have dealers coming into our facilities anymore. So we basically made the decision, at least for the near term, that it had to be online transactions only. So as of right now, all of our volume is 100% digital. So I guess you could say that entire marketplace is a fully digital marketplace at the present point in time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Peter, I mentioned earlier that you managed the same marketplace startup through 2 massive economic downturns, in the dot-com bust and in the Great Recession. So can you share with everybody what went right, what went wrong as you were navigating those 2 downturns, and can you share any advice with the marketplace entrepreneurs that are in the audience today as they navigate the recession that we're in now? Yeah,
no, I think it's a very good question, and I do think we're entering the third one. So it seems like every 10 years, Quinn, we got to expect something, right? So, and I know, listen, there's some businesses that are counter-cyclical. I was talking with an entrepreneur last night in our session, who said, or 2 entrepreneurs who said their business is way up in this COVID crisis because of the nature of what they do. But I think for most businesses, a recession means it's bad for your business. They're not counter-cyclical, they're cyclical. So I'm going to speak to people who might find themselves in that specific type of challenge. What went right and what went wrong? I'd say fundamentally, my advice would be look at it as an opportunity. Okay, each of these crises, yes, they are tough, but I think tough situations make great companies and make great leaders. And I think look at it as an opportunity. And that's kind of the biggest learning I have when I go back. So the dot-com era, we were a less than 2-year-old business. And we were having some good traction, but not enough to be sustainable in any way. And then this crisis hit, and suddenly all our potential customers thought that companies like us were all going to go out of business. So the sales cycle, which was already long, became almost infinitely long. And that's really what happened for about a year. We just couldn't get deals closed. But everybody thought we were all going to go out of business. So, we had to make some very tough decisions as young entrepreneurs. We really had to kind of figure out, okay, what are the few things that are showing promise that will have a result here, and everything else we've got to sort of deprioritize. And I'll say, the Great Recession was kind of a similar situation. We had a business going into the Great Recession that was growing, but owing to some of the customer contracts we had, there were some dynamics about our business that the more we grew, the more money we needed to finance all those transactions. Because we were kind of financing these transactions for these big motor companies, which made no sense. And we were able to use the Great Recession to go in and say, listen, we got to change these contracts. We got to get to a situation where your balance sheet is funding these transactions, not little old us. And we did that there too, in addition to cutting a whole lot of costs, let me be honest. So if I were to knuckle down on what are the key pieces of advice, first I'd say make sure you've got enough capital. Make sure you have enough capital. It's critical in these times. And I think that's a twofold thing. One is get your costs in line. Okay, don't hesitate. Get your costs in line. Every company has more costs than it needs, in my experience. Address your costs. And then secondly, if you need to secure capital, secure capital. I don't know if you've noticed, but we secured some capital this week, actually, Quin. Pretty big financing was announced yesterday. Second, I'd say take a hard look at your business. You know, what are the few things that have the potential to be transformative through this period of time? And focus on those. And it shouldn't be more than 3 things, preferably one thing. 1, 2, or 3 things. Focus on those, eliminate the rest. Get rid of the rest. Those projects, they can come back some other day, would be my advice. And finally, you know, put some thought into how do you capitalize on crisis? Customers would be more receptive to change right now than they were 12 months ago, and likely than they will be 6 months from now. Everybody is looking for how do I do things differently right now? And you know that phrase of a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. So figure out what are the changes you need to make, and then just move quickly, because that window opportunity closes real fast to force through those types of changes. So that'd be my advice.
Yeah. And so you've been both a digital marketplace entrepreneur and a marketplace corporate executive. Folks often claim that marketplace startups have an advantage over corporations in that startups are more nimble, right? While marketplace corporations have the advantage of scale. So having been in both those worlds, can you tell us a bit about the differences between building a digital marketplace inside your past startup, Openlane, versus doing the same now inside a large corporation in Car Global? And can you also share with us, you know, how you think corporations can actually deploy digital marketplaces better than startups?
Yeah, good question. You know, I mean, if you look at the track record, the disruptive entrepreneurs really have a great track record, you know, in these types, doing something new, getting a focused team, a very focused mission, patient capital, you know, all that kind of stuff to drive change and really take it home. There's been some great outcomes in that regard, and that model, absolutely can work for sure, and can be incredibly satisfying. I mean, I think, you know, my 10, 12 years Openlane as an independent company, you know, I wouldn't trade that experience for anything. That was just incredible, you know, just professionally satisfying type of journey, right? So I'm jealous of all you guys that have, you know, similar kind of opportunities. But, you know, the big company has a lot of advantages too, and it can be a fun journey. You know, Car has been a really interesting experience for me. You know, it is a big company, but it hasn't felt like a big company. So I think a real question is, what sort of big company you're dealing with? You know, can you be a big company that acts more like a small company? Can you leverage the advantages you have from scale, from relationships, from data, but still make decisions quickly, fail fast, do all the things that we credit startups with doing? You know, it's not an easy equation, you know, particularly in a realm of a public company with investors that are used to having, you know, EBITDA and dividends and cash flow and all those types of things, right? But you know, big companies can do it too, you know. And I also say the landscape is quite different. You know, when I started Openlane, or when we started Openlane, yeah, I think there were a lot of big companies that were kind of asleep at the switch, you know, confident in what they had and weren't really looking out for disruption. But I feel like that's not the case today. I think today everybody is focusing, and at least all good management teams are focused on digital transformation. This idea that if you don't disrupt yourself, you will be disrupted. That's kind of, you know, that's kind of the state of the business right now. So I think it's probably a more complicated competitive environment today than it might have been, you know, 10, 20 years ago in that regard, Quin.
And is there anything that's been easier, you know, building digital marketplaces inside this large corporation? Is there anything easier than what you experienced during your startup days?
I think if you can marshal the scale of the resources the company brings to bear, it can create great advantages. You know, those resources of personnel, customer relationships, really, really important. You know, the fact that you have established relationships with these industry partners and customers that can drive volume through your channels. I think the real question comes down to focus. You know, how do you get these bigger teams aligned around, okay, we were going this way, but now we need to go this way. How do you change that direction? How do you get everybody aligned around this, understanding of this? That's much more complicated with 15,000 employees than it is with 50, right? That you can, see every day. I'd say that's, but yeah, the scale of resources and the customer relationships, and frankly, even this COVID crisis, moving all our customers online, I think is going to give us some real strong advantages as we look to the future here. I really do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about the acquisition of Openlane by Car. So let's think back to the negotiation that you had to acquire that startup. What do you think you did well during that acquisition process? What mistakes did you make, and what kind of advice can you share with other digital marketplace entrepreneurs in light of that experience?
Well, I guess in terms of what we did well, Quinn, we got a good acquisition with a good partner that really had a good strategic fit with us, with the technology, and that platform has gone on to grow massively relative to what it was back then. So it's been nice to see that continue on its growth path and not just get mothballed and migrate all the customers across. But I also look for the learnings of what could I do better. With the benefit of hindsight, I will say that I probably on a personal level allowed maybe fear to get the better of me a little bit. We were coming out of the Great Recession. We'd been growing for 10 or 12 years, but now I could see that our business was going to contract because of just the dynamics of retail sales in the Great Recession, and we were selling used cars. And I was very concerned about what that would mean for our business, our ability to retain employees, et cetera. So I kind of started to weigh the fear side of the equation more heavily, and probably made me more receptive to an M&A type exit, And I sometimes wonder, what if I'd stayed the course, right? What seemed like a long chasm to have to cross back then, with the benefit of hindsight, now look back and say, well, it was a couple of years. We'd have got through it, right? So, I guess my advice would be to any entrepreneur would be, first and foremost, focus on, can you achieve your vision without doing this deal, right? And if you can achieve your vision without doing the deal, then focus on achieving your vision if you still have the energy and passion for it, right? Because at the end of the day, that's going to drive the value creation for you and for everybody else. Mm-hmm. That said, if your answer to that question, and be brutally honest about it, if your answer to that question is no, we probably can't, the competitive reality is too tough, or we're never going to get there, or whatever it is, then I think you got to say, okay, then let's figure out an alternative path, then you get into the technicalities of trying to get a deal done with somebody, right? Mm-hmm.
And so let's actually turn the tables, and let's put on your Car Global hat. So now as a potential acquirer of other marketplace startups, can you talk a little bit about the considerations that are on your mind as you evaluate those acquisition opportunities?
Yeah. Well, I've acquired a bunch of startups over the years. Even in the Openlane days, we acquired competitors, we rolled them together, we acquired a logistics marketplace. So I love acquiring digital disruptors. I've had some great outcomes with that, and frankly, keeps me exposed to startup entrepreneurs, and that's a real fun thing. First key question: strategic fit. Okay, what does this startup do? How core is what they do to what we do? I think that's got to be and I like to think of our business in kind of concentric circles. At the core of our business, we're an automotive wholesale marketplace. And then there's a layer of businesses around that enable that, right? So does this acquisition fit into that core or in the enabling circle, right? Is it a case of 1 + 1 = something more than 2? 1 + 1 = 3. Can we acquiring this company accelerate their growth? Can they accelerate our growth, et cetera? I think that's a key question. And I'd say the last one is the founders. My assessment of the founders as people. What motivates them? Are they looking for an exit and spend the next 10 years on the beach? If that's the case, I'm probably less interested. I mean, I might still be interested, but I don't really want to run your company, right? But if there's somebody who says that I could see a path to this re-energizes me, and I'm still good to run this business and grow it under new ownership. And that's really exciting to me. So I'd say those three things. And of course, price and valuation and all those things are relevant too, Quinn, without question. But those first three have to fit before it's even worth talking about the price.
Yeah. And so now we're going to open it up to the audience for Q&A. So folks out there, please do send your questions to the chat window, and I'll relay those to Peter. I think we have one question already from Jim Press, who would like to know, how did you migrate old car dogs to become young techies? Old car dogs to young tech bros and broettes.
Yeah, well, that is still a work in progress. I can tell you that, Jim, because that one, again, I mentioned how we were naive. The phrase that I learned in those early days is kick the tires. Dealers like to kick the tires. Hey, dealers are buying cars for inventory. It's not like a retail customer buying a car every 3 years. These guys are buying 50, 100 cars a month. They can do that online. But you know what? A lot of them really want to kick the tires. And is true even today. Like I mentioned, we have moved all our buying online. I'm getting a lot of email from dealers saying, when are you going to open up your auctions again? I want to come back in. I want to see these cars. So it's a work in progress, but the online tools have gotten better. There's a generational shift that's taking place in all industries. And I guess eventually you get to a point where the balance kind of tips and our sellers start getting better outcomes in the digital marketplace than in the physical. And that then accelerates the transition. So that's probably where we're at. It took a lot longer in this industry than I might have imagined 20 years ago to get.
And Peter, we have a question from Gabriel Gervelis. Hopefully I pronounced your name right. So outside of the marketplace's main revenue sources or source, what types of creative revenue generation trends are you seeing, Peter?
Well, yeah, I mean, the main source is transaction fees, sell fees, and buy fees. Many marketplace models have those. We monetize logistics, and we can do that profitably, the delivery of the vehicle. We monetize financing. Buyers who want to finance the vehicle, buy now, pay later. We have a division that monetizes that. That's very profitable. We have purchase guarantees, and that's a relatively new product. We call it assurance. So for an extra fee, you can return the vehicle, no questions asked. That's a revenue and profit source. And then in our physical auctions, a lot of ancillary services. We recondition cars, wash cars, clean cars, repair cars. I don't know if those are super innovative, creative, but in aggregate, they're pretty substantial. Let's just say, I would say an aggregate revenue is marketplace transaction fees, and half is ancillary services.
Mm-hmm. And we have a question from Ron Myrose. Are you using connected car data to assess maintenance condition of the vehicles?
That's a little bit of a new frontier in our business. We're using it in a very limited way in pilots. More examination going on with respect to that. But I will tell you, in this online world and 100% digital marketplace, the condition report is the currency of the marketplace. What is the condition of this vehicle? So things like connected car, onboard diagnostics, as well as the physical condition of the vehicle become really important to our buyers and our sellers, because our sellers need to know how to value these vehicles.
Mm-hmm. And a question from Jake Werdiger. What do you think is the future of the retail market, not the wholesale?
This is crazy here, but you guys might not know this, but last week in the United States, there were more used vehicles sold, substantially more, than the same week last year. And I've spoken to a number of automotive finance companies today, and they're all seeing record levels of credit applications. And that's hard to understand given the crisis we are going through. But I think one of the things that's going on here is there's obviously some economic stimulus and stuff like that, but I think of the places you feel safe right now. You feel safe in your home and you feel safe in your private vehicle, more so than you do in your public transport, airplane, or even frankly, rideshare right now. So will this be a temporary thing, long-lasting thing? I don't know. I've been surprised by the rebound here. I would not have guessed it. But I think the future of private ownership of vehicles remains very strong. I felt that, frankly, for a long time. There's been a lot of talk about we're all not going to own cars. We're going to go and have a different type of transportation model. I think there's place for a different type of transportation model. I believe me, there is, particularly in the big cities. But I also think the private ownership model has a lot of legs left on it.
Mm-hmm. And so, gang, I think we are about out of time here. So Peter, thank you so much for sharing the journey, and thanks to everyone out there in the audience for all the awesome questions. Wish everyone a great day today.
Quin, thank you very much.